So when I was 22 years old, before I went to the Navy SEALs, and I was almost 300 pounds, I saw my dad through an 8-year-old's eyes. I saw him drag my mom down the stairs by her hair after he knocked her unconscious. I saw him beat me so bad, me and my brother so bad, that we couldn't go to school because my mom had to write us a letter excusing us from class. So at 22 years old, I went back to see this man. He's now dead. And I went back to see, was he as bad as I thought he was? Because now I'm an adult. And I went back and he was. Same guy, same evil man. So talking about forgiveness, what I learned about people who bully me, my dad, and so many other people out there, forgiveness is important, but how you're able to forgive people, it's not like you can just walk in and say, hey, I forgive you, man. Right. We're good. No, these people did damage on you. It's not that easy. You know, no matter if God's in your life or not. How I do it is this. You have to go in and examine the person that hurt you. Take yourself out of it. Whatever they did to you, take yourself out of it. I had to look at my dad through a mature man's eyes and say, okay, what causes a human being to be this way? What makes a man beat someone like he beat me, my mom, my brother like that for no reason? What causes so much hate? And I started to study him. And I started realizing he had a lot of issues. The people who made fun of me, you look at them, you look at where they live, where they came from, their childhood, their upbringing, their mom, their dad. Everything comes from a source. So you got to take a different vantage point in life before you forgive. All the evil in the world, it comes from something. So that's what I was able to do. I was able to go back, look at my father and realize to make a man this evil and have this much hate, it came from something it did. It came from how he came up. The reason why we go back to old habits is because our goals are too lofty. We're not achieving our goals fast enough. So what happens is, you know what? Oh man, we're very impatient nowadays. For me, it was good. I didn't have a phone. I was out of this world by myself. It was a race against David Goggins. It wasn't a race against, God, I want to look good for this person or that person. It was me. I got to change myself. So for me, if I lost 5 pounds in a week, I got a feeling. I allowed myself to feel proud of that. I didn't look at, I got to lose 106 pounds. I'm like, man, I went from 297, now I'm 292. In 1 week, man, I'm killing it. We're not proud of ourselves for the small accomplishments. What we need is this monstrosity of a thing to happen and say, I did it. Nah, there's a process that you have to go through, and patience is the process. And if you don't have patience, after a week, I haven't lost 30 pounds, man, I'm done. I'm over it. So that's what I found out with people, man. They're not patient enough to realize and to enjoy the moment, not live in it, just enjoy it. There's no finish line in life, but enjoy that moment. Roger that, man, I lost 5. Let me go 10 next week. So that's the whole thing about it. That's how people lose it. I had run a 100-mile race, and I think it was about 6 years. I had, some heart surgeries. I had maybe some questioning in my mind about, I call it part-time savage. I started kind of going through this. I started getting, a little bit injuries, a little bit of this, a little bit of things that back in the day never slowed me down. So when I got my head out of my ass and realized that, hey, we have more left, we can still push harder, we're not there yet. I realized, talking to a guy named Cameron Haynes, who did this race, 240-mile race. And I go, is this the new level? Is this the new push? So when I decided to do that race, it was in the back of my mind like, man, I've really become an expert at running 100-mile races. So for me, this was the new level, the 200+ mile race. And what was so amazing about that, as you probably read in the book, I had a hard time the first time doing it. I came back and did better. But what's amazing about the human mind is that it becomes your new norm. Like to think that I can run 200 miles, 240 miles, and that becomes like running 50. I never thought that was possible. This is why I'm always pushing that limit, because I know that within pushing these limits, there's always more. So I end up doing like almost like back-to-back 200-mile runs. When the 200-mile race, 240-mile race was hard at once, it became something that was very easy after I figured it out. All the failures of my life, all the things that I failed and I went back. I failed and I went back and I finally succeeded. All the things that kicked my ass, I put them all in the cookie jar, because at times of hell, even the hardest men, in times of suffering, what we do is we forget how hard we really are. Because that's what suffering is. Suffering is a test. That's all it is. Suffering is the true test of life. And so that cookie jar travels in my brain. So whenever I get put in a situation where I have poopy pants, the woe is me mentality of, oh my God, life sucks, I take a second, I take the 1 second decision. I step out of my life for 1 second, go in the cookie jar, pull up, oh, you were in 3 hell weeks and finished 2. One of those hell weeks, a guy died because it was so bad. Oh, you are a badass. You are. I put it back in the cookie jar and I remember who I really am. I'm not the kid that was called nigger. I'm not the scared kid. This is who I am. It's a reminder of who you truly are at the core of yourself. But what I was saying to myself the whole time on that track, and this is what I say to myself: self-talk and visualization are the 2 keys to my success. I believe for that last 19 miles, I was indestructible. Because I took myself in that chair, crapping up my back, peeing blood down my leg, shin splint, stretch fractures. I use all that for motivation versus negativity. I use it for motivation. I said to myself, who on this earth would still be going like that? You are. You are. You gotta be the hardest on the planet. Is it true? At that time, it got me to the finish line of that race. I believed it. I believe it today. I believed it enough to where my body said, he's not gonna stop. And I took all the negative things. I need to go to the hospital, this and that. And I used it all. Who the hell could even get out of that chair? You did. Who the hell would even think about taping stretch fractures up? You did. All those things I used for motivation.
You know what? Being accepted is one thing that killed me. And you have to learn, what do you want in your life? We have so much influence coming at us that we are so lost. We don't know what we want to do because we don't spend enough time with ourselves. You have to learn to shut off a phone, shut off a computer, shut off a TV. And it's okay to sit in a room by yourself in a chair and just think about you, where I want to be. Where do I see myself tomorrow, the next year from that? And it takes a lot of self-discipline to be able to do that nowadays, because you want to be so attached to everything. You want to be so caught up with the world. The world's moving too fast. The world's moving so fast that you're trying to keep up to the point where you lose yourself in the world. So you have to take that time and go to that dark place in your mind and discover who you are.
Was there a time in your past where you realized that you've overcome your old self and really truly felt transformed? Or do you feel like it's an endless process that you're still building?
It's an endless process. Endless process. All that I went through in my life to get here today, it is tattooed. It is tattooed in my brain. Every day I wake up, I am constantly battling that person that is like, man, you know, back in the day, this happened to you, man. You know, like, you got called nigger so many times, and your dad beat out of you, man, and, you know, you couldn't read, and it's daggone junior year. All these things start to creep up, even now where you're at today. Every day, you're having to constantly battle. It's not as bad as it used to be by any means, right, but that person's still there. That person always lives. And that's the point about you have to continue to always challenge yourself every day.
One thing I found out was for several years, I gave myself a way out.
When you were 300 pounds?
When I was 300 pounds, when I was, all the way up until I was 24 years old. I would climb a mountain, I'd fall back down. I start climbing, I fall back down for the first 24 years of my life. I went to my first hell week, my second hell week, and then my third hell week came in SEAL training. And the CEO, Captain Bowen, looked at me. I'm on crutches. I'm all jacked up. He says, hey, this is your last time you're going to go through buds. This is it.
I had several stress fractures. I had double pneumonia. I was jacked up, and he gave me a few months to heal. He said, this is your last time going through. I shouldn't even let you go back through.
Wow.
I started Navy SEAL training with stress fractures. And this is when I started to not put a cap on the body if the mind is there. Every morning I would wake up at 3:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, go to my dive cage, go in there before anybody saw me. I'd get duct tape, and I would tape from my forefoot all the way up to the mid of my calf, and I would put 2 black socks on. And so I ran not using the pivot, and I ran my hip flexor. So for the first 45 minutes to an hour, I was in absolute excruciating pain. But what motivated me through that whole process was the fact that this kid came from that. I'm in the hardest training in the world, in the worst shape of my entire life. What if I can graduate amongst these studs?
Wow.
All these guys around me are studs. They're stallions, they're gladiators in my class. They're all healthy, most of them. They're not broken like this. Let me have some, everybody's sick going to that training. But if I can graduate, it would change everything. If I can start the hardest training in the world, broken, and graduate. So my mind fed off that. You are now, from the weakest man, you are now the hardest man to ever. One guy I was training with came down to visit me. He was amazed at how I kept the same routine I had 20 years ago. Waking up early, going to the gym, getting after it, going back in the afternoon. I could tell he felt bad, so he started to explain to me why he can't do it anymore. Talked about travel, talked about work. So he started asking me, how the hell do you do this every day? I said, I don't negotiate with myself. Most of us come out here, we explain away why we can't do it, and we stick in this negotiation process in our mind. You can't negotiate these things. They're definites. Stay hard.